Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Dodge this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Holy Moment Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss movies with you, and we talk about the moments that work, the moments that don't, and of course, the moments that reflect truth in unexpected ways. And today, all of those truths are so cute. All those truths are wrapped up in warm, fuzzy feelings, beautiful dancing, amazing songs, and bright, vibrant colors. Because today, folks, for the first time ever on the Holy Moment Podcast, we are talking about a wholesome, happy, fun, not sad or dark movie. We are talking about one of my favorite childhood movies of all time, and of course I'm talking about Tangled, the 2010 Disney movie. I'm so excited to talk about it with everyone, but before I get off racing on Maximus, that horse, let me introduce my dear friend, Jeffrey Nichols.
Howdy, folks. I'm Jeffrey, as my wonderful co-host has introduced me. We're discussing Tangled today, which is an excellent movie. Perhaps in my top 5. I think last time I saw this, though, is maybe in theaters. So it's been a while. It's been a good bit. But
Oh, I am jealous. You got to see this in theaters?
yeah, I believe so. It was 2010, right?
Yep, 2010. So I feel like you and I are like going through adolescence or beginning,
Yeah.
it's one of those movies. I'm sure everyone at home, comment down below, guys, whether you're watching this on, Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts. Let us know what was like your staple movie, that one movie that was just on repeat when you're in a minivan, when your parents were busy at work, you're just watching it like nonstop with your family. I feel like everyone has like one or two of those movies. And Tangled, for some reason, is one of those movies for me. And I think it's because when it came out, I was 10, but my two younger sisters at the time would have been like 5 or 6, maybe even a little bit younger, but they would have been in that age range where they were really into Tangled. So I think it just got played a ton at my house. And this was also before, a lot of streaming. So we had a local gas station called Zippin where you could rent movies. And this would just be one of those movies we would rent and then forget to return and just watch it over and over and over again. What about you, Jeffrey? Do you have any movies as a child that just like was on repeat all the time?
Man, oddly enough, my parents, we didn't really watch movies all that often. There's the 1960s animated Robin Hood movie with the foxes that I absolutely adored.
I remember this because Jeffrey and I were roommates in college, and for 2-3 years, he was like, Nathaniel, you got to watch this. It'll be so great. You'll love it. And I think finally senior year, I had a bunch of movies that I promised a bunch of people I'd watch with them throughout college. And so finally in the last like 3 months of college, I was like, crap, I got to like make good on my word. So I watched a bunch of movies with a bunch of different people. One of those was Robin Hood with Jeffrey. And I think unfortunately it just didn't work for being like a 24-year-old dude. It just kind of found it annoying and boring, but I definitely understand if you grow up with it, and I'm sure there were things to enjoy about it, but it just didn't hit home for me, unfortunately.
That's fair. We all have our preferences and whatnot. Luckily, though, we both really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah. We all have our preferences. Jeffrey's is a furry, fox. Not going to say much about that. And mine is a lovely, cute movie of feminism and heroism. We're talking about Tangled, of course, and I'm just really, really excited to talk about this. I watched it last night, and I don't think we've watched like a ton of downer movies. I don't think we're watching anything dark or really genuinely upsetting. I think most of our picks this season haven't been anything too crazy, but it's been a while since I've watched just I guess to be, for all intents and purposes, a kid's movie. Obviously, we watched Super Baby Geniuses 2, but that doesn't count. Like that was...
Yeah, we were just talking prior to the episode began that this movie is the perfect intersection of lighthearted kids movie and well-made film, right? Super Babies, I mean, it's a kids film, but it was not enjoyable to watch, and I think we were spending the whole episode sort of making fun of it, right?
Yeah, I was surprised after watching this how wrapped up I got in the magic and the whimsy and the fun. And it's just been a while. To anyone out there, whether you're single, old, an adult, anyone who's older than like 18, if you haven't watched like a fun movie, like maybe a Disney movie or like a movie from your childhood, go watch it. Just like go sit down with a nice snack, and they're short, they're sweet, they're nothing too complicated, and you can just like let go and enjoy life for a little while. It's kind of like the equivalent of taking a really nice walk on a sunny day. It's just refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, this movie it felt a lot shorter than it was. right?
Yeah.
Very tight script, felt like an hour 20, but it's actually an hour 40. It didn't waste a lot of time. I think there was one scene that was a bit slow. Perhaps slow is not the right word, but I just wasn't as invested in it, but we can discuss that later. It's a really minor thing.
Yeah, the concept of how quick the movie feels is something actually, there's a whole topic I want to get into later on the podcast. So I'm happy you brought that up. But before we go down that rabbit hole, let's give some background. The movie is Tangled. This was directed by Nathan Greno and Brian Howard. They've done a little bit of work together, but they've done quite a bit for Disney animated movies. They did Encanto, Zootopia, Bolt. This came out in 2010 of November, made by Walt Disney. The budget was 260 million, which kind of surprised me. I do know animation is expensive, but that was a lot of money. I thought, again, it was beautifully animated and the quality, but I just didn't feel the scope of 260 million personally. However, I mean, it made double that. It made just under 600 million at the box office, so it did great for itself. The cast: Mandy Moore played Rapunzel. Zachary Levi, I'm a big Zachary Levi fan. Shout out to all the Chuck TV show watchers out there. Great show. But Zachary Levi played Flynn Rider, and Donna Murphy played Mother Gothel. Also, I want to bring up one other voice actor for a funny reason. Ron Perlman played the two big brute brothers who Flynn Rider steals the crown with at the beginning of the movie. The reason I bring it up is, you want to know their canonical name in the movie?
Don't tell me it's Ron and Perlman.
It's Stabbington Brothers.
Stabbington Brothers?
Their last name is Stabbington, which I want to say, in their defense, Flynn Rider backstabbed them, and Mother Gothel stabbed Flynn Rider. The brothers never technically stabbed anyone, so I'd like to say misrepresentation. If anything, they've been taken advantage of. Just because they're born as ugly brutes doesn't mean that they necessarily are evil people.
Well, we also figure out that Flynn Rider is an alias, right? A pseudonym for Eugene Fitzherbert, right? He wants to project an image of a dashing young rogue. So maybe Stabbington is also a fake name, right? Maybe their real names are John and Steve.
I'm thinking Cute Cuddle Buddy.
Cute Cuddle Buddy.
Yeah, because they picked a very literal last name, Stabbington. Maybe their real last name is very literal too, like Cute Cuddle Buddy, and they're just like, that's not us.
They just want to run from it as fast as they could.
Truly, they are one of the most tragic characters ever written in film. But I digress with that. So actually, should have said this at the beginning of the podcast, but this is for the category of Oscar could have been. So basically, we can pick any movie that was nominated for the Oscars that year but didn't win. And so Tangled was nominated for the Best Original Song, I See the Light, but it lost to We Belong Together from Toy Story 3, which I thought was absolutely outrageous. Toy Story 3 was another one of those movies, came out the same year. Same kind of, I watched it a ton. We also rented it from Zip and just watched it over and over and over. I really love Toy Story 3, but I do not remember this song, so I had to look it up. It's the song that's played in the credits. Have you seen Toy Story 3, Jeffrey?
Long time ago, yeah. And I was about to comment on that at last I See the Light. That's what it's called, right?
I think
The
it
song
was just,
Entangled?
this is Wikipedia, so this could be wrong. It was just titled I See the Light.
I See the Light. That song has had more sticking power
Oh, yeah.
in the cultural consciousness than the Toy Story 3 song. I can't even think of what it sounds like. But I've been humming I See the Light all day and for the past several days.
Yeah, I listened to We Belong Together last night, and I couldn't tell you what it was like. And I think the reason it won was it had nostalgia. So basically, Toy Story 3, kind of the end saga for the Toy Stories, even though, like a decade later it came out with Toy Story 4, besides the point. But in Toy Story 3, the toys go off to a new home. They leave Andy. And the credits is kind of this montage of the toys getting along in their new life, and this song plays over it. So I really think it's just nostalgia right there. I think arguably the impact on the actual story, I See the Light, was much better. I think arguably it was a better song. The scene it played in, it just all in all, I really think it lost because of nostalgia, which is such a shame.
It shows you the power of IPs, right? And nowadays we're seeing sequel upon sequel for so many recognizable properties and fewer original ones. And of course, Tangled is based on Rapunzel, the classic fairy tale, so it's not an entirely original property, but it takes it in a very original direction, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think their reimagining of it wasn't anything too crazy, but also enough to be new and fresh. And I really liked where they took this story. But last thing about awards is it did win Best Song Written for Visual Media at the Grammys that year. So I feel like it vindicated itself there.
That's good.
Yeah. Usually we kind of dissect the movie by acts, but I'll be honest, like, who hasn't seen this movie? Who doesn't like? I feel like out of all the movies we've done, and maybe I'm just wrong about this, but I feel like Tangled is such a beloved, well-watched movie by children, by people our age that grew up with it, also by older adults who had children that probably watched it a bunch. So I'm not going to maybe go too deep into the acts, but I actually wanted to open it up with a question for you, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
So basically, Rapunzel trapped in a tower by an evil woman who she thinks is her mother, and then she decides to run away one day, being a good teen adolescence, exercising her rebellion with this hot, we don't know how old he is, ? He doesn't feel 18, but she's 18, so a little questionable there.
I think it's early 20s, right?
I think, yeah.
He's old enough to sprout some hair on his chin. I was looking at his face when they were sitting by the fire together, and he does look young, specifically in that scene. And if his face were shaved, I could see him being like 20, 21, maybe 22.
Doesn't he technically meet her the day before her birthday? Isn't she technically 17 when he first meets her?
That is true. True.
All I'm saying is the last time I watched this, I was probably like 15. Now I'm 20, 25, and I'm an adult looking for the real hard facts in Tangled. But I digress. So Flynn Rider and Rapunzel are going on their merry way, and they stumble into a bar of ruffians, and we get the amazing song, I Have a Dream. My question for you, Jeffrey, is what do you think it takes in a man's life to end up like that little Cupid dude who wears a diaper? Because that man must have the most tragic backstory ever to willingly wear just a diaper and Cupid wings and walks around with no shame. What do you think has to happen to a person for that to take place?
I've never been to Vegas, but I imagine that he's like one of those street performers, the Elvis impersonators and the like. He's walking the streets in this outfit, and that's how he makes his money. People tip him for the entertainment value. And so perhaps he's just a performer. But I also think that a lot had to go wrong. I'm sure that maybe that's not how he had envisioned his future in entertainment.
So you're saying all the people in like Las Vegas who are entertainers, something went terribly wrong. You don't get to that point without, something going wrong is what I'm hearing Jeffrey say.
No, not at all. I think that there are a lot of people who are doing really good work and really enjoy what they do. And I would not take that from them. I think this man in particular, though, if he's spending most of his time at the bar, who knows? Maybe he's having a good time. He's not drinking away anything. He has the confidence to hit on Mother Gothel when she shows up. I don't know. Maybe he's not miserable. Maybe he's just content with his diaper and his little Cupid wings.
Maybe that is peak like manhood right there. You asked me last week with Die Hard, what does kind of being a man look like with our character in Die Hard? But maybe Tangled answers it. Maybe being a true man is being confident enough to wear a diaper around and hit on older women and be confident about it. Maybe that's what we should strive for, Jeffrey.
But maybe he also struggles with incontinence, right? That's the word, right? Maybe he has to wear it, and he's like, well, since I'm wearing it, I might as well lean into it.
That's true. I think this Halloween, you go as Bouncy Ball Boy from Kid Super Geniuses 2, and I'll dress up as Diaper Man from Tangled. And I feel like we'll be an unstoppable duo.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Perfect. And that's not me admitting on air that I have incompetence and that I need to wear a diaper. I definitely can use the bathroom. I promise. I'm very good at it. But with that being said...
With all fairness, though, audience, I've never seen him use the restroom. So he could just be talking.
With all fairness, audience, I've asked Jeffrey numerous times to watch me in the bathroom, and he refuses every single time. So if anything, this is Jeffrey, maybe a little homophobic, I'm just asking you to watch me pee.
Where did that come
from? Not that
from?
weird. You just said that you've never seen me use the bathroom, and I'm telling you, I have offered for you to watch. but you don't watch.
Well, you always have to use the restroom at the most inconvenient times, right? I'm running out the door. You're like, hey, Jeffrey, watch me pee. And I'm like, I have to go to work right now. This seems planned.
I've showed up to your workplace, Jeffrey. I'm trying to make this relationship work. Um, well, this is what happens when you get two 25-year-old dudes talking about Tangled. We don't talk about the cute stuff. We talk about pissing in front of each other. That being said, this is an extremely cute movie. I don't like musicals. And I know Disney can fall into a weird realm of like, is it a musical? If you sing one or two songs, is it a musical? This wasn't a question I was going to ask, but is this a musical or no?
Oh, 100%. I
It is.
view
What
all
is?
the Disney princess movies to me read as musicals, right? Because there are several musical numbers that push forward the plot. I don't see how it wouldn't be regarded as one. I think that the Bollywood movies are more of a gray area.
I guess we're just so used to in movies, especially animated kids movies, for there to be music. I guess I don't even categorize it as a musical. And also, when I'm thinking of musical, I'm thinking of play. And when I think of play, I'm thinking of real life. So I guess when I hear musical, I'm thinking of live action, not animation. But I guess you're right. It's 100% a musical. But I was going to say is I don't like musicals. I don't usually like when they're singing or dancing in movies. That takes you out of it. And especially like that. That's very true for most Disney movies. I really liked the music in Tangled. I liked all of the moments, and I feel like, and obviously they do this in all Disney movies, and hopefully all musicals. It's not like they just throw a song in there and it's random. Maybe they do that if it's RRR a little bit, but that's besides the point. But the songs are supposed to carry weight. They're supposed to be narrative pieces, supposed to tell part of the story, and they're also supposed to be like emotional moments. They're supposed to carry a lot of emotion. But I don't think, to me at least personally, a lot of times in movies that doesn't happen. But specifically with Tangled, every song really progresses the story, and every song carries so much emotional weight behind it. And again, it might just be my nostalgia talking for watching this movie so much as a 10 or 12-year-old, but this music really hit, I feel like, harder than ever for me. Do you have a favorite specific song from this movie?
Man, honestly, at last, I See the Light was very effectively used, but also Mother Gothel's Mother Knows Best, I think, was such a fun watch, and I think that actress has a lot of range, right? And she uses several different voices throughout the song, which I think is a bit hard when you're putting on a voice already to, as that character, do voices while still sounding in character. So that was a really fun performance. But I mean, even the song that they sang to utilize the power, the magic of the hair, I find myself humming that over and over. They're all very catchy songs. And to your point about emotional weight, I think it was Alan Menken, the guy that wrote the music for this, that said that when you're writing a musical, when the characters' emotions rise to a point where they can no longer be adequately expressed in words alone, that's when the characters break out into song. And that's the trick. The song has to feel earned. And so that was likely his goal in writing the music, and I think that it worked.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that I think 100% works for narrative pieces like films, but imagine if that was real life. You hit an emotional high, whether you're excited, happy, sad, angry, you just burst out into singing. I would pay a lot of money to like see someone live their life that way. Like it was a medical condition for some reasons. Like, I'm so sorry, sir, you've been diagnosed with the musicals. And so just anytime you have a high emotion, it's like, you know how narcolepsy people, if they have really high emotions, they can fall asleep? It's
Yeah.
like that, but they start singing instead. And I think that would be amazing.
I hope that the quote is from Alan Menken, but it might also be from Rodgers and Hammerstein, and Alan Menken are the ones that wrote, I think, most of the classic Disney musicals. Rodgers and Hammerstein wrote like Cinderella and I believe Snow White, and then Alan Menken, I think, took Little Mermaid and Tangled, and he was the guy for a while. And it sounds, there's like an audio, how do I say this? There's a continuity in sound between those movies. Do you feel that?
Between this movie and Little Mermaid?
Yeah, like that whole era.
Oh, okay. Era, yes. Specifically Little Mermaid, I've never seen it, so can't answer that. But I haven't seen a lot of classic Disney movies. We didn't
Really?
really watch a lot of Disney growing up. Yeah, I've seen like a good handful for sure, but like there's a good chunk of like classic Disney movies I haven't seen. Next season, I'm thinking about doing a category of maybe like making you cry or making your eyes ball out or whatever, and I want to put like The Fox and the Hound. That's another like classic one I grew up a lot
Oh,
on.
yeah.
But yes, I would agree that there is a continuity of sounal. What's the word I'm looking up for?
I was struggling with that too. Like
Like it's like
audio?
the sound. No, it's something. It's with an S. People use it in
Sonic?
like talking about Sonic. Yeah, yeah.
Sonic continuity.
There's a Sonic continuity between a lot of this like era of Disney movies, and also it's true that in the film industry there's small circles, but it's super true about I think kind of specifically Disney. If you look at like different eras of Disney, kind of like the old stuff, then the mid 2000s, then kind of the newer stuff, you'll just see the same names popping up on every like just like same music producers, same directors, same animators, same like just like they use a lot of the same people. And so you definitely see that continuity through a lot of their films in all aspects, whether it's the animation or the storytelling or the music.
Yeah, like, first era of Disney musicals, Rodgers and Hammerstein. Next era, you see Alan Menken. And then in this current era, we're seeing Lin-Manuel Miranda. And that's the name that keeps popping up.
Oh, yeah, which is cool. That they kind of have that sonic continuity through like so many movies, but maybe I think it can get a little old. I bet if you watch a bunch of Disney movies back to back, they all start to feel like they bleed together, and maybe that's why I like Tangled. It just felt fresh. Just something about it felt so fresh and nice, and that kind of leads me into one of my big topics for the whole episode. I think what made this movie such a standout, unique thing was two things. And the first thing I want to talk about was the main villain. Our main bad guy, Mother Gothel, was so different than I feel like a lot of Disney villains and just villains in kids' movies in general. She's not the stereotypical dumb, brutish, power hungry, money seeking person. She's very intelligent. She's very, I mean, the only correct word to describe her is manipulative, very cunning. Just a little bit of backstory. So maybe for you, those who haven't seen Tangled, there's a magical flower. And if you sing a certain song, which first off, how did Mother Gothel know to sing that song? Do you think she found the flower and it's like, I'm just going to sing a lot of songs around this flower and it's going to heal me? Or like how'd that happen?
That's the thing. There's so much mystery surrounding who Mother Gothel is. Like, what does she do for work? How does she bring in an income? How did she get the tower? Did she just find it? How did she get the resources and manpower to build it, if that's what she did, right? And I think I could have sworn prior to watching this last night that Mother Gothel was a witch, right? That's what had stuck in my memory is that, oh, Mother Gothel is a witch. But it's mentioned nowhere in the film. She's just a lady. And
Yeah.
I think that makes her all the more effective as a villain, right?
Sorry,
She's not a
just how you said that made me think of what's worse than a witch? A lady. Sorry, just how you phrased that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue.
No, I mean it's so true because she's not this powerful sorcerer or magic wielder. She's just a really bad person that you could, I guess, come across in the wild. We have people that are narcissists in our real world that can't turn you into a toad, but they can manipulate you. They can gaslight you. They can convince you of things about yourself that aren't true.
No, it's 100% true. It is. She in fact is such a scarily accurate bad person, which I think is what makes this film so compelling. It wasn't that Rapunzel was, and I don't know much about the original story, but I feel like the original story or just a lesser story could have been, Rapunzel was kidnapped as a kid and she's forced to stay in this tower where she's under lock and key, waiting for someone to a handsome knight to come and save her. She was coerced, like she was lied to her whole life into this make believe world that to be codependent on Mother Gothel. No one's coming to save you. The world is horrible. Everyone is out to get you but me. And I think it's a scarily accurate thing that people do all the time, and specifically in relationships. Whether it's a parent to a child, but I think more accurately, you see it in spousal relationships. Abusive husbands, emotionally manipulative women, where you tell the other person you cannot exist or thrive or anyone will love you if I'm not here in your life. This brings me to one of two quotes from two people in my life that said something about Tangled that actually really hit close to home. The first is my soon-to-be future mother-in-law. I was just talking to her the other day and I mentioned, oh, yeah, pretty soon we're going to be talking about Tangled on the podcast. And she's like, oh, I love Tangled. It came out when I was in college. It was a great time. I watched it all the time. But then she's like, as I got older and I watched it more and more and more, I started to be able to not watch it. And I was like, oh, what are you talking? Like, what did you get old and it was like silly and goofy? She's like, no, Mother Gothel became so real. And she works in education. And so I think she deals with parents sometimes. But I think the more she realized that people like Mother Gothel actually existed out there, it became harder and harder for her to watch it. And when she first told me that, I was like, come on, you're an adult. That's a little silly. But rewatching the movie last night, I was like, dang, the, every single word out of her mouth is poison. And like you
Mm.
said, Jeffrey, I didn't pick it up as a kid. Narcissistic. When she comes in, she's like, look how beautiful I am. Look how great I am. Just every word drips with just this arrogant, self-centered drip.
Yeah,
And it was so vile.
constantly talking over Rapunzel and giving her backhanded compliments or just really penetrating remarks. Something else to notice too is whenever she's showing Rapunzel affection, right, and love, she's always looking at the hair, right? When
Mm-hmm.
she says "I
Yep.
love you," she kisses the hair. When she's being physically affectionate, she's running her hands through the hair, and her eyes are trained on the hair. It's not on Rapunzel. She's an accessory to the real prize, which is the magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the notes I wrote down. Those things. And when she's singing the song, she calls Rapunzel a pet. She refers to her as a flower, like you're my little flower, you're my pet. So very demeaning and controlling. It's just like as a kid, you get the vibe. Oh, this lady actually stole Rapunzel. We know she's bad. But it's not until honestly you're an adult that you're watching it. You're like, oh, this is actually so uncomfortable with how creepy Mother Gothel is and how because it could have been an interesting story. I think this would have been a very different movie that I'm not saying would have been better than what we got with Tangled. It just would have been different things, you know. But it would have been an interesting concept if Mother Gothel kidnapped Tangled Rapunzel, raised her, and then yeah, wanted her for her hair, but did grow to have some motherly affection towards Rapunzel. There was literally never a single moment where there was any genuine affection, any genuine love, anything that reflected anything more than you're an object to me. And I just thought that also really drove home this authentic, upsetting character that is can be found in real life.
Absolutely. And Rapunzel lacked all of the context needed to see Mother Gothel for who she was, right? She had no context for what is an actual loving relationship like. How should mothers treat their children? And the nicknames Flower and my pet, right, could be viewed from a certain lens as endearing without that context of, oh no, Rapunzel, you are a literal flower that that Mother Gothel prizes heavily for its ability to keep her young, right? There's a reason she calls you that beyond the fact that you're pretty and delicate.
It's true because one of the questions I was thinking about asking, but the more I thought about it, I decided it wasn't a good question, was the idea of uh, did you find it believable that Rapunzel didn't figure? Because, like, when we're watching it as an audience, we're like, come on, Rapunzel, how are you so naive and pure? It's so obvious what she's doing. But think about it. She was kidnapped as a baby, a really young baby. And then, arguably, what we are presented in the movie, Rapunzel has never met another human being. She has no news. She doesn't even really know what lanterns are. She has no idea there's another kingdom out there. For all she knows, her mother could tell her, hey, we live in a post apocalyptic world. There aren't other humans, they're just zombie monsters. She doesn't, exactly push the lie that far. But for all we know, there is no basis for what is out there for Rapunzel. So it 100% makes sense why she would believe it. The only thing that can maybe make it a little unbelievable is Rapunzel knows she has magical hair, and she should arguably pick up on that her mother uses it, which I'm not saying, if you gave birth to a kid with magical hair, I'm not saying you shouldn't use it, but the only, like, you could, like, maybe Rapunzel could be like, well, my mom doesn't leave the house and she really likes my magical hair. But again, I believe, the codependency that Mother Gothel clearly spent all 18 years of Rapunzel's life carefully curating. Like, I thought she was so masterful because getting ahead of myself, but Mother Gothel knew it wasn't enough just to grab Rapunzel and bring her home. Like, Mother Gothel showed up at the Rubber Ducky or the Ducky Salon or wherever they're at singing I Have a Dream, and she gets there before the guards. She could have burst in and been like, hey, we're going home right now. I'm your mother. Don't talk back to me. but she knew she had lost Rapunzel's heart. She knew Rapunzel was getting too old, and she realized, I have to manipulate the situation to make her never want to go outside again. And it's obvious that Mother Gothel's been doing that to Rapunzel her whole life.
Yeah. And the thing, too, is, again, Rapunzel has no context for what a loving relationship looks like. And so, for all she knows, maybe her true value does lie in her hair and the magic that it provides her mother. And perhaps that's not viewed as unusual. It's just how things have always been. And in doing this for her mom, she gets like praise and quote unquote affection, right? Or at least some semblance of it. That's her only source of affirmation. So I can see her not catching on to this being a toxic dynamic because she hasn't been given reason to believe that she is valuable in and of herself.
I mean, obviously, no one should ever do this as a thought experiment, but it does raise the question of like, what does it look like if you, and I'm sure, there have been research papers done about this to some degree out there, but like, yeah, what does it look like when you have complete and utter control over everything in someone's life? The media they consume, the language, just everything. I don't know why we're diving so deep in this topic, but I find it fascinating. You know what's also really interesting? I bet you Rapunzel had such little outside interaction. You have to imagine that Rapunzel's way of speaking, and again, this isn't actually reflected in the movie, but I'm just saying a real life scenario. But the way Rapunzel speaks has to almost be like an identical clone of her mother, from the cadence to the words she uses to an accent. Like if you were not really, I mean, I know she had some books, but like there's no TV, there's not a lot of books, there's no newspaper, there's no other voice for her to listen to. Like down to like your speech pattern. Like I bet you Mother Gothel could listen to how Rapunzel talks and be like, "Oh, well, you've never used this word before. You've never used this idiom before. Clearly you're consuming something I have not given you." Again, just a really random detail, but I just was like, "Wow, I cannot imagine only having an interaction with one person." And that's just insane.
It's also very interesting, too, because, of course, she keeps Rapunzel in this tower and isolates her from other people, but she's not there all the time, right? And so she clearly doesn't care enough about Rapunzel to be a micromanager over all of her affairs. And so she has her space, right? And she has her books and her paints. And I think Mother Gothel is equal parts helicopter mom and neglectful parent.
The worst of both combinations.
Exactly, yeah. And it does make me wonder, I guess back to it, a question I had before is I don't know what Mother Gothel does, right? To provide for herself and get these books and paints and food for Rapunzel and herself. Part of me wonders if she like uses her looks.
I mean, when you asked the question earlier, I was tempted to make the joke, but I mean, again, you're not going to tackle this in the kids movie, but she does seem like the woman to be a prostitute.
Yeah, like well, so I envision specifically a courtesan, right? Like one of the high life, sophisticated, well educated, in demand people that would hang out around like the French courts pre-revolution, right? And they were highly respected and sought after, but also like if you paid them, that's what they were there for. Is they were desirable, and I could see that being her, right? And so I could see it being important to her to keep her youth, keep her beauty, because it's how she has always received value.
Mhm. I like that definition more because I feel like with prostitute we often think of cheap and self-loathing and just trying to like make a quick buck. But with what you described, because I think the word that comes to mind when I think of Mother Gothel's character is vanity. She's not chasing wealth. She's not chasing power. She is chasing her own looks, her own youth. She is so obsessed with living forever. So I feel like while she wouldn't be opposed to sleeping people with people for like to make ends meet, she wouldn't just be doing it with anyone. She's much more like, I don't want to say like the life of the party, but very manipulative, very, very cunning, very like, look at me, a type of person. She uses her beauty to get what she wants, but she has to do it on her own terms because, again, I think she is very vain and she's not just going to be like, oh, well, someone finds me attractive, so I'll sleep with them to make money. You know what I thought was really interesting about her character? When she discovered the crown, there wasn't even a moment where she's like, oh, I could sell this and make lots of money. Obviously, the crown meant something terrible to her. It means that Rapunzel is maybe finding out the truth about where she was really from. But I think even more than that, Mother Gothel isn't concerned about being rich, being powerful. She just is so obsessed with her own beauty, so obsessed with her own look, so obsessed with her own life living on. Like she's one of those characters where she's not trying to live the fullest life. It is literally just about, can I live forever and just keep pushing it? And can I be beautiful forever? And so I feel like it makes a lot of sense that maybe if she's out on the town, like being a courtesan, like you said.
Yeah, I guess at this point it's all speculation, but going down that speculative road, I could see her taking a step back from that life as soon as she had Rapunzel to take care of, because she's now having to spend all this time taking care of her flower and tending to it in a way that she never had to when it was just a plant. Yeah, it all stems from this vanity and a need to be viewed as beautiful, desirable, and that's the only thing that's important to her.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to what you said earlier, you're kind of like, it is kind of ambiguity. Like ambiguous. It's kind of
Ambiguous?
ambiguous. Thank you. It's kind of ambiguous of like, is she at the house all the time? Is she out in the city? Does she like leave for months at a time? I definitely get the vibe that she's more than often always at the tower. And I think it's again because she doesn't care about socializing. She doesn't care about the comfort of life. I think she has become so enamored with this ability to prolong her life, she's actually stopped living life. Literally, like it's become an obsession for her. I think you even see it when Rapunzel asks for her, like, "Hey, can you go get the seashells for my birthday?" And she's like, "It's a 3-day journey. I'm going to be gone for a long time." I think that kind of implies that she doesn't leave for much longer than a day or two, if even that. And I think again, it has nothing to do with her love for Rapunzel. It's nothing to do for her life there. It has everything to do with protecting this power because this power is her beauty, and to her, her beauty and her life is everything. But I'm realizing audiences at home, we're like 45 minutes into the podcast, and we've only talked about Mother Gothel. But that's because again, Mother Gothel's quote unquote evilness is so grounded in reality and selfishness that the real person can run into every single day, that it makes Rapunzel's, you know, worries and anxiety and highs and lows so much better because it's grounded in something that you and I, Jeffrey, can experience at any moment in our life. Someone who's controlling, manipulative, and cunning. But with all that to be said, the movie is not called Mother Gothel. It is called Tangled. So we cannot not talk about the one and only Rapunzel. I thought Rapunzel was such a breath of fresh air. She was so fun and naive and pure, but also kind of a badass running around. And she was just like a perfect balance of whimsical fun and like, hey, I'm here to get stuff done. Oh, hey, that rhymed. But my question for you is just first impressions of how did you think Rapunzel was as a protagonist?
Yeah, I think that she is so lovably naive, and yet she has this spunk to her and a willingness and a desire to explore and learn. Yeah, she's just so delightful to follow.
No, I 100% agree. To take a book out of your own, or take a page out of your own book, last week you asked me with Die Hard if you thought the main character, how he represented masculinity, positive, neutral, negative. I'm going to flip the script. With, princess movies and Disney movies, I know Disney can get a lot of flack for back in the day, making very generic, very unrealistic standards for women. I swear, we talk about other things on this podcast, but how do you feel like Tangled handled the idea of feminism and just the female kind of life in a movie?
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's a bit hard for me to answer that given my own experiences and who I am. But I will say, talking to my female friends about their experience of media portraying women, is femininity seems to be sort of shunned or viewed as not very feminist. And oftentimes movies go the extra mile to turn their female protagonist into someone that is highly masculine, right? Oh, we don't like pink, we don't like ponies, we don't like traditionally girly things. And yogurt, yeah, sure.
I feel like, I don't know why, but when I think of women, I kind of think of yogurt. It's like delicate and soft and supple and tasty. Wait, Yeah, I'm going to stick with this. And the yogurt we ate growing up was very pink. And Women like pink colors. And Activia. I think this is what it really was. Growing up, there was an info commercial for Activia, the yogurt that makes you shit. And it was always an old lady being like, if you can't shit, eat this yogurt. So yogurt is a female product. Confirmed.
I've never heard of that yogurt before. That sounds horrifying.
You've never heard of Activia? I think it's Activia. Fan base at home, please email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com to tell me if I'm in fact talking about the correct yogurt. If not, I've been feeding my grandma the wrong yogurt this whole time.
I don't know. Like, it's just the idea of, okay, this is a yogurt specifically designed to make you shit. This is the shit yogurt, right? And
some people have trouble pooping, Jeffrey.
I mean, sure, but like, what am I putting in my body? You know?
See, this just proves that yogurt is a female thing. Jeffrey didn't even know this yogurt existed. I bet all our female audiences know about Activia.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm sure there are plenty of guys too that are avid Activia consumers, as it were. But here's what I'll say. To my point, yeah, I mean, talking to my female friends who pay attention to feminism in media, they say that femininity is demonized, right? Whereas here we have someone that loves to bake, loves to paint, is a crafty person, enjoys pink, but that doesn't make her any less strong, doesn't make her any less adventurous or brave. In fact, I mean, the upper body strength on Rapunzel is off the charts. I mean, if this were a true-to-life film, then her arms would be massive, right? Just with all the hauling things around with her hair, and she manhandled Flynn in the tower during the interrogation.
I like to think about, I don't know if you've seen the anime Hunter x Hunter, but there's a character, I mean, it's a common trope in anime. She is like secretly 50, but she looks like a lolly, so she looks like she's 10, and she's very small and dainty and skinny. But she's actually droided out. She's like the Hulk. So when she goes into her true form, she just like explodes and gets enormous. I like to think that Rapunzel, it's her hair that keeps her magically skinny and attractive, but secretly she's like 6'8" and can bench like 900 pounds. For further proof of that, there was this not only upper body strength, Jeffrey, there was a scene where she's painting like the roof of her like room, so really high up, like 20 feet off the ground, and she's using her hair and a pulley system to like hoist herself up. And the way she is holding herself up with her hair on this pulley system is she's holding her hair between her big toe and her other toe. So she's holding the weight and the pressure of herself between two toes, which just by itself makes her stronger than I think any Marvel character we've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, no, she is superhuman. I mean, there's that moment when Flynn is bringing in the firewood. He's like, hey, your hair, does that give me, is this hand that you healed all of a sudden going to be super powered, right? And I feel like that's a legitimate question.
Yeah, I would also ask that. Well, nope, I'm not going to say that next sentence. I was going to say I kidnap a woman to get super strength, but then I realized that's not a good thing to say on live air. Probably not.
It's a really good thing that you caught yourself. Otherwise, that would be very embarrassing.
Crazy. Yeah, I would never do that. I respect women. That's why I watch Tangled, actually.
Yeah.
Because I respect women so much.
Yeah, good on you for keeping that inside.
Thank you. Yeah, if Tangled was remade in 2025, Rapunzel would be a muscle waifu. She would be carrying Flynn all over the place. She would have a shredded 8-pack, and people would be lapping that up.
Yeah, I'd lap that up.
Speaking of lapping up animated characters, this is actually something I wanted to talk about. I don't want to drag our dirty clothes in the closet or skeletons through the mud or whatever the saying is, but I got to ask you, Jeffrey. We're guys. We grew up, if you know what I mean. When I was a kid, Rapunzel was one of my first like young adolescent crushes, whether it was live action or animated. I just thought she was so cute and so sweet. So my question was for you: what were some of the like crushes you grew up with from television, whether it was animated or not animated? What were some of the first Jeffrey, eye hearts popping out of his eyes, cartoon moments?
Well, you and I both know, Nathaniel, that Jane from Tarzan is peak, in my opinion. And in my child brain, I was like, wow, she is just so attractive. Of all of the Disney princesses, she's not a princess technically, but I crushed so hard. It's like, Tarzan, good on ya. But I say you and I know because we sort of share that answer.
It's a great answer. Yeah, Jane and Rapunzel were kind of the two, and they also their character designs are very similar. Which again goes back to our earlier conversation of continuity through like the years of Disney movies. Also, not to change the subject for too long, but speaking of character design, their eyes are enormous. I have not in anime, not in Pixar movies, not in other Disney movies. I don't think I've ever seen a movie where their eyes are this big. Did you catch on to that?
I did. I think it did have very heavy anime inspirations. I think even like the Little Mermaid, her eyes are bigger and more expressive, though not quite as much as it is in Rapunzel, but I think that Japanese animation, it's so fun how American animation influences Japanese animation, which influences American animation, and it's just this feedback loop. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but it's always been a really cool relationship.
I remember one time I got into an argument, like junior year of high school with one of my best friends because at the time I was kind of a weeb, and not a lot of other my friends or really any of my friends liked anime. So I would just talk to this one friend about anime, and he just would like to make fun of me for it. And he always tried to like I would always be like, yeah, anime is the best. It influenced American. It's just like the best thing that's ever happened. And he was always trying to disprove me to like heckle me and poke fun. And one time he found an article being like, yeah, look, Walt Disney was doing the big eyes first, and then the Japanese took it. So I just remember getting into an argument with him, and I got so heated. I was like, no, no, Japan's better. Ah! That's exactly how I sounded as a junior in high school.
The fun thing is, I remember hearing those debates in middle school, high school of like, oh, anime is so much better than cartoons. But when you go to Japan, when you understand the language, anime just means animation. They'd call SpongeBob an anime over there. Even disregarding the wonderful trailers slash, opening animations.
The anime, yeah, like if SpongeBob was an anime, yeah,
Yeah.
those ones are pretty great.
Check those out if you haven't seen them. They're really quality.
Yeah, and you can check those at the Holy Moment Podcast at youtube.com, and we definitely have them there. But speaking of animation, that's something I wanted to talk about with this movie. Do you think, Disney's doing like the whole animation to live action kind of beat for beat thing. Do you think Tangled would make for good live action, or do you feel like it's already done well enough in its own format of animation? So do you think like why mess with it?
Yeah, I think that Tangled does several things that would be hard to translate into live action, specifically a lot of their physical gags, right? The physics of animation are different from the physics of real life. You can just do more with drawings or with 3D models. And so I think if you're trying to translate it shot for shot, then that would perhaps not do too well. I think that would translate poorly. But I think that there is a world in which like you can adapt this movie into live action, making the necessary changes, and then it could be fine.
You and I have talked at length before on this podcast, specifically when we watched Akira, just kind of about animation versus live action. And we both believe normally almost pretty much any adaptation, whether it's film to like animation to live action or vice versa, or television to film or book to movie, whatever, that it shouldn't be a one for one. Each medium it has a medium specificity for a reason. A TV show does better things than movies, and movies do better things than TV shows. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. So why would you take something and then try and shove its strengths into the other whole's weaknesses? Play up what you got. So my question is, if you go from an animated Tangled to a live action, what are the things that you actually would change to make it better for live action? Like what story element? Like what elements would you kind of focus and shift around?
I think so. Something really fun that they did in Tangled is Maximus does not act like a horse. He acts like a dog, right? And he's very
Yeah.
animated in his movements, and he engages in a sword fight with Flynn. I feel like that would be harder to do in live action. I think they'd have to make him a little more horse-like, because I think that the suspension of belief asked for by the film to the audience would be just too much at that point. Which I think that, there's always some level of suspension of disbelief that is necessary and desirable in movies, right? Because movies are an escape, or movies are fictional, even if they're depicting real events. And so, but I think that they'd have to tone down some of the physical humor.
Which is such a shame because honestly, this is another big topic I wanted to kind of talk about was the physical humor balanced with the grounded moments. I think really highlight some of my favorite parts of this whole movie. And I think that's just pretty general like idea with all kind of kids animation, specifically Disney. Of course, you're gonna have really crazy, funny, animated comedic moments. Like moments like Jeffrey was saying that you can't really do in real life. A horse acting like a dog. Someone jumping off the side of a building and like doing 20 flips before landing on a horse. Just things that don't translate super well to live action unless you have $1 billion. And even then, it's just not as funny. But even with that aside, I feel like Tangled did it better. And I think one of the reasons is like we talked earlier with Mother Gothel and just the deep, deep themes. When I say deep, I don't mean they're the most complicated. I mean deep as in they're hitting home to some of the most fundamental fears and hopes we have as humans. Fears of the unknown, hopes and dreams. These really carnal, basic human desires and free fears. They're playing on that. So I feel like whenever we get these emotional moments, they hit so much harder. And I think they do a good job of tempering themselves with the absurd physical comedy animation. Like they do it enough, and I want humor in it, but they know when to pull back. They know not to undercut a scene that's supposed to be emotional with a funny moment. So that's my question for you, Jeffrey. What was some of the funniest scenes, or even just moments? And did you feel like this movie ever undercut the emotional moments with humor? And movies often do that. They can't stick to a real moment, and they have to put in like a joke at the very end.
No, I felt that they were all seamlessly integrated. There was never a moment when I felt a joke was inappropriate to the scene. As for a moment that I thought was particularly funny, when I was a kid, I'd loved the smoldering look bit at the beginning, but something I appreciated more as an adult, not that it's like particularly mature, it's just his tiny comment after making the look of, listen, like I don't, this is an off day for me. Things just haven't been going well or my way at all. Give me some grace here.
Was it just me, or did that ever so slightly feel like a erectile dysfunction joke?
I have not thought that,
Just
but I'm
me?
gonna.
I just because like when I watched it this time, it was just like how he said it, like sorry, usually things work out for me, or this isn't normal. Just everyone, it just got ever so slightly like sorry, I can't get erect.
Hey, I'm gonna watch
But
it again with new eyes, right? After this episode, maybe I'll throw it on again.
that's what we do here at the Holy Moment Podcast. We find the moments that work and the moments that reflect truth in unexpected ways. Jeffrey is going to go find this truth that I have just given him. And it will be absolutely, truly beautiful. But that being said, welcome to the newest segment of the Holy Moment Podcast where Nathaniel tries to give specifics about things he says. So he's not just saying generic things and not giving specific scenes or moments. So, for example, a really funny moment followed by a really heartfelt moment that I feel was really grounded and just worked really well was after Flynn and Rapunzel are running away from the Ducky Tavern, and you got the soldiers chasing after them. You got the Stabbington brothers chasing after them. Flynn and Maximus, the horse, engage in a fight where the horse is fighting with a sword and Flynn is fighting with a frying pan. And Flynn even calls it out in character in the world, being like, "This is the craziest thing I've ever done." And then, literally a minute later, we have Flynn and Rapunzel drowning in a cavern, about to die, and it's so heartfelt and so upsetting. It just felt so real in that moment. They escaped into an underground cavern, but then they get locked in, and then water's flooding in. And I just love Rapunzel in that moment because you can feel her desperation. And in that moment, she apologizes. She's like, "You're gonna die because of me." And I just felt that it was so impactful. And something also that I really loved about that scene was the way they chose to animate the scene really reflected the characters in that moment. You have Flynn, someone who was raised in an orphanage, someone who had to fight every single day of his life to get anywhere in life. So when he's in that cavern, he's diving under the water, he's beating against the rocks, he's ripping and tearing at them to the point where he's cutting himself open. And then you have Rapunzel, someone who's lived in a tower her whole life. Yes, she is brave, but she's also subdued in a lot of ways. She has not found her courage to go out into the world. So she tries to escape. She hits the wall with the hammer or with the pan, but for the most part, she just stays still. And I just thought it was really cool, especially because you're in a confined space. When you're in a confined space, the way someone moves weirdly becomes much louder. It becomes much more pronounced, and it was just a really small, nice detail of character storytelling that I really liked.
No, yeah, that's an excellent point there. Even when they're not speaking, their body language speaks to the character, and so there's a lot of thought put into this. I also really enjoyed his reaction to seeing her hair like glow and it work at magic.
Yeah, in that scene, I was like, man, Super Saiyan's got nothing on Rapunzel because it just grew so blonde and bright. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I feel like he reacted very believably, right? He's holding his breath underwater, and that's important that he keeps that air in, right? But as soon as he sees this thing that he was not expecting, like he sort of gasps and has to sort of recapture that air.
Recapture
But he's
that
not
air
really
while you're underwater. And I don't know if you could recapture air while you're underwater, Jeffrey.
He's sucking the oxygen from the water as a fish does through his gills.
I was literally about to say he's a fish then. Yeah. He has he has his own secret powers. No, I mean I just really love the chemistry overall. I thought it was so believable. Something we talked about in RRR, how the two characters were foils for each other and they became better people. It's the same with Flynn and Rapunzel. You know, again, Flynn is this boisterous, over the top, confident person, but deep down he's afraid and afraid he will be alone and can't trust anyone. And Rapunzel is this pretty brave, pure-hearted, loving girl, but deep down I think she's afraid that she's not gonna find purpose or be or do anything with her life. And so it was kind of Flynn's fake confidence that rubs off on her to be more confident, and it's her pure heartedness and loving that rubs off on him to remember, hey, you don't have to like put up a wall all the time. So I just them from the very first scene of her knocking him out with a frying pan. Again, we've already defined that she is a badass buff waifu. He should be dead. His brain should be smattered across the floor. But that's not the point. The point is they were so cute from beginning to end. I really believed in their relationship and wish desperately I was invited to that wedding because that would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, even though the romance was very quick, right? As is typical for Disney films, especially this era. Even though it was very quick, it was believable, right? And I think that when you endear an audience to your characters, your audience will forgive a lot as far as like inconsistencies go, or hey, like this doesn't quite make sense. Not that their relationship was inconsistent or this movie was inconsistent in any way, but again, the fact that we like these characters makes us, root all the more for their relationship as quick as it is. And
No, I fully agree. And you mentioning, the relationship blossoming so quickly reminded me of a comment you made earlier at the beginning of the podcast, and I said I wanted to address it because this also was kind of a big deal to me. It's not a long movie, hour 45, not very long, but it still goes by so quickly. And usually you just chalk that up like RRR, 3 hours and 10 minutes, goes by an hour and a half. And you chalk that up to being a lot of fun and a good movie. Tangled, it's different. Is it fun? Yes. Is it a good movie? Yes. But you know what happened when I got done with this movie that I realized? It consists of 4 scenes, not 4 acts, like 4 scenes. It consists of like Rapunzel at the tower, deciding to leave, her and Flynn going to the rubber ducky place, them at the castle getting the lanterns, and then Flynn going back to the tower to save her. Yeah, obviously, it 100% is not 4 scenes, and you can break it up into many more scenes. But arguably, it felt just like those 4 giant scenes. And I think you could easily argue that's a bad thing. And if other movies, if it was done differently, I would agree it's a bad thing. However, I would argue the opposite, specifically for this movie. I feel like by only having 4 major scenes, we were able to really get into the minds of the characters. We were able to see them interact with each other. Like, for example, when Rapunzel leaves her tower, I feel like they could have gone on their way. Oh, she's on her adventure. They spend a bunch of time with her, like in that forest area, the meadow right outside her tower, going through all the stages of grief or whatever you want to call it. She was happy, excited, elated, terrified because of leaving the tower. And we really got to see her character react. And then we got to see Flynn react to her. So I think, again, when we have the emotional moments, them about to drown underwater, her finding out that she's really a princess, her at the lanterns, all of these scenes, I feel like hit so much harder because we didn't gloss over things. It didn't feel like our characters were dragged through a journey that they had to get to the end. It felt like our characters experienced a journey. And I know that kind of sounds like maybe metaphorical bull crap, but I think it's when you watch it, you really get that feeling. Some fun kids movies just feel like you're racing to the end to get to a conclusion. This felt like our characters were able to traipse through everything, and we got to experience the world and their shenanigans together, and I really love that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that it wasn't constantly a matter of like, oh, bomb, 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 point A, point B, point C in rapid succession, because it did allow you to spend time with these characters and believe in their journey. I think that was a common criticism of the Mario movie, actually, is that things happen so quickly that it's hard to get invested in the characters, even if the movie as a whole is enjoyable, is fun.
I'm going to get on my soapbox for 2 seconds. This is one of the reasons I don't like sci-fi movies. I feel like sci-fi authors get so enamored with their worlds. Look at this world, it's blue. Look at this world, gravity's upside down. Look at this world, tigers, eat with their buttholes. Wow, we're so crazy and creative. But they just bounce from planet to planet to planet and spend such little time. They show that one little detail, be like, "What, isn't this good writing?" And we never get to see our characters really interacting with the world. And it just feels like such a whiplash. And just like the Mario movie, I feel like they really pulled on nostalgia. Look at all of these millions of products that Mario's been in. But at the end of the day, we actually want to see Mario kind of have a character arc. And I didn't hate the Mario movie, but I definitely would agree with you, Jeffrey, that sometimes I felt like too much was happening and we didn't get to spend time with our characters. I was talking to my fiance this morning about the movie, and I kind of just made the comment of like, did it bother you that these two characters basically fell in love in the span of 48 hours, just like 2 days? And she replied with, Flynn and Rapunzel might have fallen in love in 2 days, but it only took me an hour and 45 minutes to fall in love with their characters. And I think that just honestly sums up this movie and the testament of how magical and fun and grounded these characters are, that in an hour 45, it's great suspension of disbelief. I'm rooting for them. When they kiss at the end of the movie, I'm like, oh, it's been years coming. It's like, oh, they met 2 days, not even 2 days ago. Like you're not supposed to like buy a big purchase within 2 days. You're supposed to and you're like, I want to go get a $1,500 TV. You're supposed to take a minute, cool off, think about it. No. They're like, baby, marriage today.
No, I mean, that's an excellent quote. Merritt, as always, spitting out the bangers, as it were. But yeah, I mean, it's a very tight script. Not much was wasted. Wasn't a lot of fat on it. And that worked to its benefit. Yeah, and that's why it turned this hour 40-minute film into something that felt closer to an hour 20. It was efficiently used, the time.
And speaking of efficiently using a tight script, if memory serves me correctly, at the very beginning of the podcast, you mentioned there was one scene that wore on you. What is the scene? I'm curious.
Honestly, it's not that it wore on me. It's not a big issue. I sometimes kind of tune out when they're in the canyon, like sort of fighting against the two ruffians, right?
Oh, really? I love that.
I mean, yeah, I think maybe I was just a bit distracted in that moment. I'll tell you what it is. I just don't like the environment. And that's a me thing. Canyons don't speak to me, I suppose, which is an odd thing to say, perhaps. I mean, hey, Mad Max Fury Road, I enjoyed that, but too many oranges. I think orange is a suspicious color.
I know exactly what you mean. People make fun of me, but I don't like things that take place all in snow. For example, the third act of Inception, when they're in the third layer of the dream and they're on the snowy mountain. It's just too hard to make anything out. Everything just like looks like one thing. So I do get what you mean. I do. But orange is not a suspicious color. Orange is good. It's nice and bright and lovely. I want to buy a chair. I want to own a chair one day that's orange. It's a dream of mine.
I think Orange Earth, maybe, is where I draw the line at the color orange. No, I mean, Orange Earth is beautiful. But no, I think it's the same. There are certain environments that you just have a guttural reaction to, whether it's rational or not. The first movie in the Planet of the Apes trilogy that I watched was, in fact, the third one.
Oh, no spoilers. I haven't seen the third one. That's the next one on my list. I've seen the first, second, and fourth one, but not the third one.
That's so funny. My parents... when I was in high school, were like, hey, the third Planet of the Apes movie just came out. Would you like to go to the theaters with us? And I was like, I haven't seen either of the first two. But they took me anyway. And I didn't understand a minute of it. And is it too much of a spoiler to say, like, it takes place in a colder environment?
Yeah. I'm not going to watch it now, Jeffrey. Thanks. Gosh, no, I'm kidding. Not at all. I'm not, as I think I've said in the podcast many times, I don't mind spoilers. But with that being said, we've talked a lot about this movie. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. However, we haven't really talked about the third act. I will say my holy moment dives into some of the third act. But is there anything you really wanted to talk about? The lantern scene, or the big conclusion at the tower? Anything that like kind of tickled your fancy?
The moment between the king and queen before they light that first lantern blew me away. It was a gut punch of emotion because it's wordless, but the way he carries himself and the single tear streaming across his cheek speaks so much to that feeling of grief and losing someone loved. And then again, wordlessly, the queen comforts him, and they light that lantern, throw it into the sky together. That scene shocked me, and it stayed with me till the end of the movie.
It is a beautiful scene. I think it's incredible how great the king and queen are, considering they're in like maybe a minute and a half of the whole film. But I don't think I've seen a real life actor capture grief and just desolation as they capture in the animation of the king. He was always looking off into a window, into like just off into the distance, a vacant stare of a hollow man who once was, who you can tell is trying so hard to be strong, but his whole world left when his daughter was kidnapped. And it was beautiful.
And I feel like it's communicated because Rapunzel's been gone for 18 years, right? And they continue with the tradition of lighting the lanterns and throwing them into the sky on her birthday, holding on to the feeble hope that maybe one day she would see it and return. But I am sure that there have been plenty of times where the king has fallen into a depressive spiral and gone, like, she's never coming back. Why are we doing this? This is pointless. And I think we caught him in one of those moments, right? And thankfully the queen was there to bring him out of it and to be there for him, a rock for him. And that gave him the courage and the strength to go out there and begin the ceremony.
I like what you said. It was just a moment of breaking down, because I feel like, when Rapunzel and Flynn first arrived to the kingdom to watch the lanterns, the kingdom's bustling. It's a little bit sad because like the reason they're celebrating is because there's a missing princess, but it's full of life. It seems like economically, spiritually, financially, just everything's going really well in this kingdom. So it's not like King Arthur and Excalibur. When King Arthur gets sad, the whole kingdom just like goes into ruin. So it does seem like the king is being strong and being a good king, which makes it even sadder. You can tell it's not like this king's walking around depressed. Like, his subjects know that he is sad, but he's still ruling well, which makes that moment more devastating because it's how much he is carrying all the time could be felt. Again, in a scene that's like 20 seconds long with characters we only see for a minute and a half, it's just absolutely incredible. 10 out of 10 to that scene. I think the only thing I wanted to talk about was the opposite of beautiful. When Mother Gothel died, it was kind of excruciating and gruesome. I was impressed that they went that dark with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty brutal. Her falling from that tall height and I guess dissipating into ash is what it felt like. Makes me wonder, how old was she?
I bet you at least 3 centuries old. I would say.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting centuries old. I don't think more than 500, but I'm getting at least two.
For her to disintegrated like that, right? She
Yeah.
was meant to be long dead.
They really pulled a Thanos. I'm not feeling good, Mr. Stark.
Yeah. Speaking of brutality, though, I wasn't expecting blood, especially when she raised her knife after having stabbed Flynn. It's clean. It's like, oh, I guess they're not going to show it. But then the shot moves to Flynn's chest, and sure enough, it's covered in blood. So it's interesting to see like where they would show blood and where they wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, quite literally, they only showed it. There were multiple times where I was like, is there gonna be blood here? Is there gonna be blood here? And then surely when she stabbed him and then like held it up very prominently, no blood. But then then they showed the close up that there was blood. So it is always a question of like, I wonder if the studios or the directors like, can I put blood here? And they're like, you really only, like how like PG-13 movies get one F word. It's like, you really only get like one splotch of blood. So choose it carefully. I think that kind of wraps up the whole movie. Anything you want to talk about before we move on to our holy moment?
No, not particularly. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I think I had one more question. Did you cry during this movie?
There are two scenes, I think, where I nearly cried. I never quite got there. Scene number one is when Rapunzel sees the lights for the first time. And it's so wholesome and exciting to see her eagerly climb the end of the boat to get a better look at it. And you can tell that she is so grateful for this moment. She is in such awe, right? And this is beyond anything that she could have ever dreamed of seeing or bearing witness to. And unbeknownst to her, these lanterns, this moment was designed for her. This is her day. And there's no one more deserving, right? After all that she has endured being held prisoner by Mother Gothel. But then the more potent scene is that quick moment between the king and queen, because it's so real, right? And wordlessly expressed. And that's what makes it so impressive. They didn't have to monologue about it. Just a teardrop and a loving hand.
Yeah, to be able to get those emotions in such short amount of time is really impressive. I started to tear up, which is so nice, like out of happiness and joy and beauty with the lantern scene, which is something you don't normally get a tear up about. Like it's usually sad. So I was so happy about that. But yeah. Well, let's hear it. Let's the holy moment of such a cute film. What was the holy moment for you, Jeffrey?
Guys, I keep on bringing it up. If y'all
What could it
can't
be?
guess, then I don't know what to tell you. So I won't even say it. Email us. Tell me what my holy moment was. And if you guess correctly, I'll... Actually, hold on. Email us the best, worst answers. And the one that sends in the best, worst answer will get some sort of thing. No promises beyond that.
Just a thing. Beautiful. Jeffrey's really blue balling our audiences. Man, as the host, I don't know if I can let this slide, but I guess, hopefully you guys can pick up on a certain scene between two people that he maybe mentioned a lot in the last few minutes. But as for mine, you kind of just touched upon it just a second ago. Mine has to be the whole lantern scene, specifically the animation. How often you brought to tears out of beauty? So often we're brought to tears out of anger, sadness, bitterment, resentment, fear, depression. But I was almost brought to tears out of this is gorgeous. This moment where Rapunzel is watching her dream unfold before her eyes, was just breathtaking. And something also that a huge theme in the movie that we really jump into was dreams. Right before the lanterns were let go, Rapunzel was like, what if my dream doesn't come true? What if this isn't everything I want it to be? And Flynn says something along the lines of like, don't worry, just have faith or it will be, whatever. But then she says something so human. She says, but what if it is my dream and it does become true? And then Flynn says, then you'll find a new dream. I think it's so true, this idea of us as humans. We have dreams, and yeah, it sucks when they don't come true, but what's worse? What if they come true and we're afraid of what's on the other side? We don't believe in ourselves, or we're afraid of the next step. So it's just these themes, these threads of these ideas that hit so close to depth of the human soul, our dreams and what we're chasing after, and the fears and the anxieties. It was such a beautiful moment, but just specifically how the lanterns illuminated the lake and how you couldn't tell where the sky and the water began and ended because of the reflection. It just was one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen, especially in Western animation. When it comes to animation, we think of Studio Ghibli, and Studio Ghibli crushes Western animation and animation, storytelling, and all that stuff. But I really think this is one of those scenes. Well, maybe I prefer Ghibli style animation to like Pixar and Disney animation. I will say this is one of those scenes that the animation and beauty rivals, I think, some Ghibli film work. And I think that's a tall, tall order. So for those reasons, that is my holy moment.
Great holy moment.
It truly is. Well, guys, with that, I think we have discussed all of the awesome moments of Tangled. If we left anything out, if you're like, why did you talk more about Maximus or the chameleon whose names I don't remember, let us know at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, Jeffrey, I think this brings us to
our last episode, which is coming out next week. Last episode of season 1. Thankfully, folks, we don't plan on stopping anytime soon, but the last episode will be of The Mummy. That's what we're reviewing with Brendan Fraser. I don't know who directed it. It's been so long since I've seen it. I think I was a wee child. We have no wheel to spin because this is just literally the last movie that we have on our list. So with that being said, tune in next time. Send us an email at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com and check us out on our social medias, right? Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, TikTok. We're on all of them, right?
Wow. It
And
only took 20 episodes or 21 episodes, and Jeffrey actually could name the social media platforms we're on. Truly. It's just because now he's in charge of posting to social media, so that's why he has to remember them.
that is true. That is true.
With our closing of season 1, guys, if you're newer to the podcast and you don't know how it works, we picked 6 categories, 6 categories of movies, and then we each picked a movie for it. So 6 times 2 hosts is 12 movies. 12 movies is 12 weeks. 12 weeks is 3 months. 3 months is a long time. So that's a season of the Holy Moment podcast, and we just finished the first season. So we're gonna pick a whole new 6 categories. We have a few that we're toying around with, but we haven't set any in stone. This is your chance, audience. This is it. For those 6 people that are listening to us, this could be you. So email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what genre you want, or what category. It could be something really cliche like a slasher film, or it could be something like there needs to be a hot dog eaten at minute 42, 32 seconds. So it could be really specific, and we'll try our best to follow through. But please reach out to us. Let us know what genres you're interested in. Do it sooner rather than later, because in 2 weeks, we're starting season 2 of the Holy Moment podcast.
Woo!
Both all of that, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening to 2 26-year-old guys talk about an 18-year-old girl. Truly, the best way you could spend your Wednesday afternoon. So remember, if you're ever feeling inadequate, if you're ever feeling bad about yourself, just know there was an 18-year-old girl that beat the shit out of a 30-year-old man. And if that doesn't sum up the synopsis of Tangled, I don't know what does. Until next time, guys, I hope you have yourself a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. And remember, chase the creative things in life and have yourself a most holy of evenings.